Hey everyone, Temporal here, and for this session we are
What's
going
up,
to go
everybody?
ahead and review
Coach Mills here.
a Gameleap guide. This one is a Gameleap guide, came out, I believe we're just looking a couple months ago here. Yeah, it's late May, so it came out just about 3 months ago here. And this is how to carry on Anna. It says in its title how to carry on support, but when we looked at the thumbnail, it was how to carry on Anna and how she's the #1 best support for it. Now, 3 months ago, so maybe less true now, but let's see how they do. Let's see what's done here. I haven't really watched Gameleap guides before, so I don't really know much going into this. Maybe they're going to be great, maybe they're going to be terrible. We are going to find out.
Here, coming at you with a brand new Overwatch video, and in this video we're going to be breaking down how to absolutely carry on Ana, because
And obviously, credentials. I'm a former top contenders coach, multiple podium finishes in multiple regions. I have some idea of how this game works. So that would be my brief qualifications for wait, why are you qualified to review someone else's guide?
Ana is not only one of the most fun characters to play, she has some of the highest carry potential in the entire game, but I do think that a lot of people are messing up some really key aspects of Ana.
She does have good carry potential, sure.
So I'm going to be giving you some targeted tips, break down all of her abilities, specific tips and tricks on each one, so make sure you watch the end. Some targeted tips, break down all of her abilities, specific tips and tricks on each one.
Okay, so we're breaking down all of the abilities and specific tips and tricks on each one. I mean, analyzing heroes from an ability standpoint isn't a terrible thing to do, but in 2021, which is when this came out, that feels a little, I'm going to say dated. Like, people know what the abilities do at this point. So I'm really going to hope that we're going to talk about what are we using, like real good details and how to use these abilities to carry, because they're putting an emphasis on that, as well as more beyond just ability usage. Are we going to talk about positioning? Are we going to talk about communication? Are we going to talk about weapon players? This is just going to be a, hey, we're reading off the wiki. Let's find out.
So make sure you watch the end, smash the like and subscribe, and go to the Gameleap website right now down below for in-depth advanced guides over every single character
I don't
possibly
need to
needs. So
see
go
your
check it out.
promotion.
The primary
All it tells me is that my rates are better.
fire on Ana, which some people already do wrong, right? How can you mess up primary fire? Well, first off, let's talk about the damage and healing numbers. So first off, it's going to be doing 70 damage over 0.6 seconds, which means most targets, you're going to be able to hit them 3 times and kill them, most 200 HP targets. That being said, if they got healing in between there, a lot of targets are going to stay alive.
Sure, I mean, that's true for everything, sure.
So definitely keep that in mind. Now, it's also going to be 70 healing over 0.6 seconds, which
is that the current numbers? Let's just make sure they've moved this around a little bit. And as we go over here, we see on the wiki, Biotic Rifle, damage 70 over 0.6, 70 over 0.6, move speed 65% penalty. Did they get all of the patch stuff in here? How good are these guys? Patch, looks like they've listed patch notes here, so I'm inclined to believe them if I don't go check it myself. Okay, cool, fine. Let's jump back in here.
which means a target that is actively being killed, sometimes your healing will not heal them fast enough to overcome whatever they're being dealt on.
I mean, that's generally true of healing. Like, that's okay. Anna can sort of get around that with Nade, but yeah, you can always out damage healing. That's at this point how the game is designed, not always how it was designed.
So there needs to be a little bit of foresight there. Now, the first thing that we got to break down about primary fire is scope versus unscoped, because unscoped is actually a projectile, which means it has travel time, and scoped acts completely different. Not only is it hit scan, but there's a lot of specific attributes about it that you need to understand. First off, it leaves the tracer, and what I mean by that is it's like,
oh, we're gonna make the pun of tracer. Okay, fine.
A tracing round, with like a real bullet where you can see the bullet fly through the air. The reason that that's important is, let's say you have a cross angle between yourself and your allies, but you're not peeking the enemy. If you zoom in and you keep healing your allies, the enemy team is going to be like, wait, what the Ana is around the corner, let's go jump on her, and they're going to kill you. So you can't do that if you're trying to make sure that your position is unknown. So
that's pretty niche. I mean, yeah, there's times where you want your position to be unknown, but mostly that's when you're going for a lurking nade and the like. Are we going to talk about that? Are we going to talk about when you might want to have your position hidden? it's not actually like that important that your position isn't known most of the time. It's really only when you're going for sneaky nades, sneaky sleeps, that sort of thing. You as Ana aren't going to be like flanking behind the enemy. You shouldn't be separating from your team in such a way either, where it's like, oh hey, my flanker is over here, or my front line is over here, I'm over here, and the enemy is right here. That shouldn't really be happening most of the time. Maybe you were set up back here and you rotated up here, though I wouldn't do it like this, to go hit a nade or something like that, and then you quickly rotate back, but you're not really healing, you're not really staying there while doing that. You're dropping your nade, maybe taking an offensive shot or two and leaving. Most of the time when you're Ana, you're thinking a lot more in the realms of the enemy is over here, and I have maybe a Winston over here and a Tracer over here, and I'm back somewhere in this range, somewhere where they're sort of helping. Or maybe it's more along the lines of my Reinhardt is here, my McCree is out here, and I'm back here, and the enemy is here. Again, our Ana can absolutely slide up like over here, get an offensive ability from here, the angle's a little better, slide up over here, get an offensive angle from here, the angle's a little bit better, but that's more where we're positioning. We're not like long-term positioning into the situation that he described, or even really short-term positioning in the situation that he described here, where the team is like here and we're like here, and the enemies really have the option to go, we were fighting you, but let's rotate over here. That's not really a thing. You've set yourself up in such a way as Ana that some sort of teammate is providing a screen for you. So if you were here, which you probably wouldn't be, this becomes valid positioning when you have a Tracer here or something like that, or a McCree here. This isn't real. Yeah, okay. I don't love that.
That's very important on Tracer. Now, of course, another really important thing you need to understand about being scoped, like I said before, is that your hit scan. And of course, it's going to be easier to hit scan than projectile, especially from far away distances. If you're trying to like snipe a far, for instance, you're definitely going to want to be zoomed in and get that hit scan aim where the bullet happens immediately upon registration between the crosshair and the target, not a travel time. That's just generally important. That being said,
okay. So far, we're just in wiki territory.
it's not all sunshine and rainbows talking about scoped, because it does give you a movement penalty. You move quite a bit slow.
Okay, we're literally just reading off the wiki at this point. Let me get the wiki back. We put this up. We put this up. We're now putting this up. Are we going to talk about what the projectile speed is? Are we going to talk about that the rate of fire is 1 every 0.8 seconds? Like, we're reading off the wiki. Come on.
Or when you're zoomed in rather than actually just aiming or shooting.
Is it Gemar? I haven't
and
watched their videos ever before.
Because you're not moving that much, or getting sniped by things like a Hanzo, a freaking Ashe, or a Widowmaker. So there is some penalty there. Now, one of the most important things about primary fire, though, is how you manage your reload. Remember, you only have 12 shots with a 1.5 second.
Are we going to talk about like pre-healing and what a good time to pre-heal, what a good time to hit reloads when your pre-healing is? Are we going to do some distribution of like how many of your shots should be heal shots versus offensive shots? What are we going to talk about here?
Reload, and I've seen it all.
Are we going to talk about the animation cancel on reloads?
Too often, where Anas are basically keeping their team alive on a very thin margin, then they have to reload and like 2 people die, right? There needs to be a certain amount of foresight involved with you and communication with your team, telling them when you have to reload, how close you are to reload.
That was the least interesting of the places we could have gone. I don't value communication that highly. It's not the end of the world. Like, it's really not the end of the world to tell your teammate reloading. That's a reasonable call out as Ana to your Reinhardt, not to your whole team. It's a reasonable call out to him because it tells him, oh, I was thinking about going for a swing here, but I'm actually going to full shield if he's tank trading, that sort of thing. But it's probably less interesting than all the other things I talked about. It's not necessarily less interesting than a distribution of how many shots should be damage versus heals, because that's not really a real thing. It's all situational. I was just curious if that was a place that they'd go. But it's definitely less interesting than talking about pre-healing when reloads should potentially happen there. Okay.
And this is really important information because some players on your team or tanks or even DPS, they expect you to just be constantly pumping them, and then when that
No, it's really just tanks, and it's really just Reinhardts and Winstons that expects you to constantly be pumping them.
Cuts off, they end up feeding and dying. So you can manage that in some ways, but it's also important to communicate that as well.
Let's not overvalue communication, especially for ladder.
So they
Communication's great, don't get me wrong, but let's not pretend that that's the key to carrying, because it's definitely not. There are people who hard carry games as Anna and as anyone without being in comms in ladder.
don't freaking expect it constantly, and then they end up just feeding instead. Now moving on to the next ability we gotta talk about. We gotta talk about Biotic Grenade, one of the hardest carry single abilities in the entire game.
It's a very powerful ability, I grant it that. Are we going to get interesting in its use?
So we got to make sure to break it all down and that you know exactly how to use it to get the maximum impact. So it's going to do 60 damage. It's going to prevent heals for 4 seconds, or it's going to do 100 healing, give a 50% bonus in heals from all allied sources, and then on top of that, it also lasts 4 seconds.
Okay, and we're just reading from the wiki again. I don't necessarily mind including that in there, including from what's the wiki here. So we see 60 damage, 100 healing, 30 meters per second, 4 meters, area of effect 4 meters, that, cooldown 10 seconds. Yeah, so we're basically reading off the wiki. Fine.
Now this is why in a pinch, Nade can be amazing for healing up a really low tank target.
Shouldn't be a terribly long one. I hope that they finish all their ability coverage here and actually get into how to carry with her, since that's what this was advertised in this last few minutes. I hope we're going to see something like that, but we'll see.
Because not only can you burst him up with 100 healing, but because of the 50% extra heals, every single one of your shots is going to do 140 healing.
What? No, it's not. If your shots did, what did we say, 70 there, and then you nade them, and nade makes them heal for 50% more, it's not going to do 140 healing. That would be if they healed for 100% more. You don't double. On release, Anna's nade caused the healing received to double, and that was huge, and basically how do you take down a Reinhardt or a monkey that's being healed for double strength? We have tuned back support a little bit. I don't know if that's misspeaking or forgot or what, but you heal 50% more on a nated target now, not 100% more. That's not 140.
Which really gets them up to max incredibly quickly, and in a pinch, that's what you definitely can do to keep them alive. That being said, the big question with Biotic Nade is aggressive versus defensive.
Are you going to talk about how the nade should generally be in front of the tank when you're doing that, so that it can be both?
Use. In my personal opinion, the way to carry the most is with aggressive use, getting fat nades, getting 3+ people.
Sure. I don't even know that that's opinion based. Yes, offensive nades are going to do more to carry, if we're using that term, which we are, because that's the point of this guide, than defensive nades. Sure.
A lot of the time, especially when your team is in a position to push up, is going to win you the team fight, especially if the enemy doesn't have anything like Immortality Field or some sort of ultimate. That being said, a lot of times you're going to need to use Biotic Nade in a lot of different ways. Like defensively, for instance, sometimes you need to use it just to heal yourself. Now, if you can position, hit your sleep darts, have good mechanical skill to get divers off you, and of course peel, then that's great, and you can use your nades for more aggressive situations.
I want to hear that one more time.
Just to heal yourself. Now, if you can position, hit your sleep darts, have good mechanical skill to get divers off you, and of course peel, then that's great, and you can use your nades for more aggressive situations. But
we're going to go more into those things, right? Are we going to go more into how to hit sleeps? Are we going to go more into what positioning is? Are we going to cover positioning as a topic? I hope we're going to cover positioning as a topic.
But that's not always the case. A lot of times you want to use your nade as a way to not only deal damage to people on top of you, but heal yourself as well, because that's all you can do without freaking feeding and dying. But it is up to you to make it so those instances happen the least amount. When the aggressive plays, try to force those through as much as possible, as long as you're not going to get punished for it. Because if you go through the
how do you make those not happen? How do you make yourself not take damage? I know how you make yourself not take damage. The way you make yourself not take damage is you're playing over here as Anna, the enemy are playing over here with their Tracer, with their Doomfist, whatever, and you recognize that they're over there, and long before they complete their flank routes, you poke them, so that Doomfist can never set up with full health. So that Tracer has to go back and get a health pack, has to spend blinks before she's in. Like, that's how you set yourself up to not be taking damage so that you can more easily afford to use your nade like that. So that you don't get punished as much for having both abilities on cooldown for brief windows, because you ideally don't use them one after another. You still separate them. You still haven't used your second ability until there's about 2 to 4 seconds left on your first ability's cooldown. That's generally how you'd think about it, unless something that just absolutely demands it. Like maybe you naded and then someone's high nooning and you sleep and you've got 6+ seconds left on the nade, but it was worth it because you had to shut down a high noon. But generally speaking, that's one of the keys to being able to and getting away with doing those things, keeping people who would come bother you honest, never letting them show up in the first place. I want to hear about that.
The entire game without making a single
And
nade.
Chad, I will catch up on you guys. You know the drill. I will catch up at the end. I'm just sort of wanting to go through this, let him cover his points. I will catch up on chat. If anyone desperately wants to get something in there and wants to interrupt me, super chats work. I can be bribed. You know the drill. But I will get to you guys at the end. Please keep throwing your stuff up there, and I should be able to link it fairly well to where it was in the video for thinking about what you were trying to talk about.
Proactive play, then you're really missing out on
This
a
is
lot
a
of value
relatively
on the
short
table.
one,
And
after all.
sometimes, like I said, that 3-4 man nade could have won the team fight. Doesn't really matter anything outside of that. And
okay, when do we use nades? Do we use nades when our team is close to their team? Do we use nades in the poke phase when the teams are spread out? Do we use nades when we got dove? Tell me more about how when we hit these 3 or 4 man nades. What condition? What's the difference between a 3 or 4 man nade hitting and not getting any follow up and hitting and winning the team fight? Like, what makes those difference? Tell me about it.
of course, if you're hitting sleep darts and fragging enemies and positioning accordingly, you're going to be able to get more of those off.
Wait, you just said those 3 things again. So we're going to cover those, right? Fragging enemies, positioning accordingly, hitting sleep darts. So I expect to hear, you've said that twice now, I expect to hear about positioning, and I expect to hear about how to sleep enemies. I hope we're going to hear about that. And I actually expect that's the most likely that we're going to hear about them, and fragging enemies. And I haven't actually heard anything about hitting offensive shots yet, other than like, hey, fragging enemies, hitting shots, okay, cool, but like how to do it, when to do it, I haven't heard anything about. Do you do it when your team is healthy? Do you do it when the team fight is broken down? Do you do it when someone's weak and you go, hey, I'm the finishing shot? Are you the initial shot that softens them up and someone else takes them down? Tell me more about fragging enemies.
Then we go to the next ability that we got to talk about in this video, an insanely high carry potential ability, and that's Sleep Dart. Now, Sleep Dart is a projectile, very fast moving. It's going to be doing 5 damage, which is pretty menial to say the least, and it's going to last 5 seconds. Now, one of the most important things that you could be doing with Sleep Dart when you sleep a target is call in third person who you're slept and who the slept person is on. And I know it's obvious, you slept them, you're Ana, they should be on Ana, but it's really important for you to say, hey, Tracer is asleep on Ana.
No, it's not really that important. It's really not. This is the second time we've really emphasized communication, and communication that I don't think is all that important. I know for a while it was super popular to be like, no, never say me, say your hero name. No one knows who me is if you're not on an organized team, say that. And like, that gets overemphasized. That's one of those things where it's like, okay, maybe that's a slight little upgrade, and we can be like, okay, fine, maybe that's a little bit better, but it's like so much lower on the tier list than learning taking angles, engagement timing, proper ult timing, working on your accuracy, learning positioning. Like, it's so much lower on the tier list. It's so minor and low. To say this me type thing, or to say yourself in third person. Like, it's not worthless. Yes, it's actually better than saying me, so I don't want to knock it too hard, but this emphasis on communication in a carry guide I don't love, because most people, when they think about carry, they're like, how do I do it? How do I make us win? I don't want to rely on my teammates. I don't want to do this. When most people are hearing carry, that's what they're hearing, and we're putting a big emphasis on communication, and honestly, aspects of communication that I don't find. Again, that's not wrong, the thing that was said earlier about, hey, tell your Reinhardt or your Winston when you're reloading, or hey, say who's asleep and then on yourself in third person isn't wrong. Really, it's too late. You can't you can't say who's asleep after they're asleep. You need to say that they're asleep when you shoot the sleep dart before they're actually asleep if you not want them to not just be woken up by damage basically every time. Um, I just think the third person thing is like, what are we at? We're at like a less than 12-minute video, and if I'm doing less than 12 minutes on a topic, I'm probably not including use voice chat to say I'm reloading, and use voice chat to say in third person who the tracer is on, who the tracer is asleep on, that sort of thing.
Don't say Tracer sleep on me. Don't kind of make it complicated for your allies. Make it as simple as possible. Tracer asleep on Ana, and it makes it really simple, and it allows your allies to come over and help you. That being said,
I mean, it doesn't allow your allies to come over and help you. They were allowed to do that otherwise. It's a call to action. It's an attention grabber.
expect a giant percentage of the time Sleep Dart to be basically like a 2-second sleep.
Less than that, even. You sleep an incoming tank, they're not sleeping for 2 seconds. They're probably getting woken up immediately, but hey, it was a little bit of a stun. We'll take it.
Because at the lower ranks, most of the time, that target is going to get instantly woken up, and then
Not just at the lower ranks.
another percentage of the time, you're going to sleep them, but you're never going to have enough help to actually finish off that target. Sometimes in a really complicated team fight, you really want to just sleep a target and then leave them, position accordingly, realizing that they're going to wake up in 5 seconds.
It's a good point. You do. That's a good point. You sleep things and walk away, and that's a perfectly valid thing that I do see Annas forget about. I do see Annas go, I have to line up my perfect combo even though I don't have my cooldown, so I'll like wait on them for my nade to come back, and like it'll be back just in time, and oh shoot, they woke up because someone hit them and now I'm eliminated. Like, no, if you don't have the tools to do it yourself and it doesn't look like someone is going to seriously help you, rotate away. Like rotate away. That's good.
But in the meantime, you get to focus on your healing, you get to make a proactive nade play, and you could deal with that target when they wake up later. But
well, if I had my nade, I'm probably just dealing with the target, unless it's like a full health tank sitting on me, but that's pretty unusual.
you temporarily basically remove them from the fight. Now, that being said, one of the big questions that comes up with Sleep Dart a lot is how aggressively do you use this? Are you trying to sleep people across the map, or are you trying to use it defensively? Well, this honestly really depends on what your team composition is, what the enemy team composition is, and how confident you are mechanically when people come upon you. So,
does it depend at all on the cooldown status of your sleep? Enemy team composition, absolutely. Your team composition, sure, kind of true. For example, if you have a Brig, you're more willing to use your sleep willy-nilly than if you have a Zen as your support partner. So sure, I can give that. How confident you are mechanically? A little bit. If you're feeling confident, if you're generally confident mechanically in your ability to hit your abilities, you are more willing to use them, because if you get value out of your abilities, even if it then in theory opens you up to be punished, it created openings for their team to be punished. So it's harder to punish you and harder to push your team when you got value out of your abilities. Like, it's a vulnerability if you miss your sleep and nade, but if you hit your nade, enemies don't usually push your team while they're purple. So your team, in theory, should have resources to protect you. It's not always going to happen like that, but that's the sort of thing. And I know here we're talking about sleep, but similar sort of thing. It's sort of like the Zarya bubble example we sometimes talk about, where if you Zarya bubble your Reinhardt, and he absorbs 40 energy for his Zarya on that and hits 2 swings during that bubble, you're not down bubble and at a disadvantage against the other Zarya who hasn't bubbled yet, and now you're weak. You're not now weak. Your Zarya has 40 more energy, and you got 160 something, 170 damage done to the other team that they have to heal up. And like, oh, but they'll heal it up before the 8 seconds are over. It doesn't matter. Like, you're not actually weak in that situation. You got value out of your abilities. And again, I'm not saying just willy-nilly throw both of your abilities out at once, because the way that the value trades and works, it can be, hey, you weaken their front line, but the Tracer gets you, the Hammond Tracer gets you, the Zen Hammond Tracer gets you, something like that, and you would have been fine if you could have protected yourself, and you protecting yourself was better than creating an opening that may or may not be exploited by your team. But he's got something here in terms of confidence in hitting your abilities, I'd say. Less so your shots. It's really, did your abilities get value? And it's not just accuracy, it's, do they get eaten by Matrix, etc.
So, for instance, if the enemy is really, really far away and they're not in a position to dive you at all, if you throw a sleep dart out and it gets value, like it sleeps someone, maybe you don't finish them off, maybe you do, or if you just miss, it doesn't really matter because by the time enemies route to you, you're going to get it
As long as your scouting is good and you know that there's no flankers closer, okay.
again and you're going to be just fine. But I see way too many honest go for these really high-risk sleep darts when an enemy is with.
Is that your example? That they went for the nade and basically immediately after went for the sleep and missed. I don't really consider that a super high risk sleep dart. I'd have liked to shoot at the tracer once with primary fire to force out a blink or two before looking for the sleep, but like conceptually that wasn't a terrible sleep. It was trying to defend themselves against a tracer. That wasn't an offensive sleep. Or is this just meaningless B-roll that we haven't tried to line up at all?
Within jumping distance on them, and then they no longer.
And I don't mind if it's a meaningless B-roll that we haven't tried to jump up. It just to line up. It just doesn't look like that. It looks like they're trying to use it as an example.
Have it to get out of that situation later. So it's definitely something that you need to kind of have a little bit of foresight for. And I honestly do think you should err on the side of being more cautious with it. I think it's far better as a defensive ability.
I thought this was a carry guide. Are you sure you want to err on the side of cautious and a carry guide? I thought we were putting it all on our shoulders, putting as much of the determination of whether we win or lose on our shoulders. So are you telling me that the way to carry on Ana is to never get pushed, never be in danger when you get pushed, and just keep your team up forever? Is that where you're going? I don't want to put words in your mouth, and I'm putting words in your mouth a little bit with that framing that's going on there. It's not a totally fair framing, but only a little.
Especially at the lower ranks where even if you hit a long distance sleep dart, most of the time that's not going to get finished up on. That's not going to be a kill for you. It's going to be hard for your team to identify that's what happened and focus them together. So having a defensive sleep dart is going to be a little bit more reliable in my personal opinion.
I mean, I do agree that generally you're better off when things are chaotic, when you don't trust things. Like, if you're going to hold one ability to protect yourself and one ability offensively, yes. You're going to hold the Sleep Dart to protect yourself and the Nade to use offensively.
Now the last ability that we got to
I do like, as people get even a little bit better, to start going, hey, as we get close to our Nade being back off cooldown, we are willing to look for a sleep and use it even before our Nade is off cooldown, but hey.
talk about is Nano.
Okay, so we're talking about one more ability, and we've got just Nano Boost. That's the only ability she really has left in her kit, and we have maybe like a third, little less, maybe a quarter of the video here. I think we have room to have another section. Like if Nano goes to here, we could still have another section on positioning or how to put it all together to carry, because I really haven't heard that yet. I've heard sort of how to use her abilities, what her abilities do. I've seen a lot of wiki reading. I'm hoping we're going to get some section over here that sort of puts it together, ties in a bow, or explains how to carry or covers positioning, something along those lines. I'm a little worried because we don't have that much room, and I'd like multiple topics covered here, but let's see what we've got.
Boost. Now, Nano Boost is going to do 250 healing. It's going to create a 50% damage buff and a 50% damage reduction on the target nanoed, and it's going to last for 8 seconds. Now, there are 4 different ways to actually utilize Nano Boost, and I'm going to talk about the different ways you could use them right and wrong in every scenario. So the first one is combo, and you're comboing like using Nano Blade. You're comboing like Reaper Nano, or maybe you're speed boosting in your Rhine, and you're nanoing him, and he's going in. Now, that being said,
combos are valid. I don't know that I think of amp speed and nano as a combo the same way I think of the others as a combo. I think of that as using an ult, and yeah, Lucio should have his ability available, but okay.
In order to make the combo most effective, you need to be actively communicating, and you need to make sure that you are executing it. A great
No, you do not need to be actively communicating. It is extremely obvious when your friendly Genji wants to go in for Nanoblade. It is extremely obvious when your soldier has set himself up for a reasonable Nano Visor. It is extremely obvious when your Reaper is looking for a Nano Blossom. You do not need to communicate it. You can see on your screen when your teammates, if you press that tab button, when they have their ults or when they're close to their ults, you can see that. You know what the ults you'd think about comboing with are before the game even starts, once you've seen the heroes that are selected. And by the way, it's going to be Genji if Genji is an option. And yeah, you need to make sure that when you're in the proper fight, you can go, hey, I am able to maintain line of sight, or I'm able to have line of sight as the fight is starting against with a Genji, something like that. But you do not need to communicate with them. And if you're going to communicate with them, it can be you press Z, they press Z, or they press Z, you press Z. The my ultimate is ready button, whatever you've bound it to. You do not need to communicate with them. Stop it. This one, I'm actually more annoyed about this one than the other one.
Example of this is making sure that at all costs you get that nano off on your Genji, because sometimes Genjis will just go int in, but if they have the nano blade, they're going to be able to get a lot of kills.
That's not really inting when they expect the nano. They should be going in as your team is going in. They should be going in such a way where if they use their blade, if they go, okay, your team is here, the opposing team is here, they go with their blade like this, and the opposing team, if the opposing team spends their focus on the Genji, your team is able to bowl them over. That should be what's happening, but that's really not too hard. Genjis make it pretty obvious. They tend to go, hey, walking in or walking up the side, whatever, and then they hit that dash, or they just creep up the side and then they drop from above and you hit the blade. And if the Genji is in a place where you can't hit him because your front line is all the way back here and your Genji's up here and he tries to blade, I don't care. I don't care if you don't nano him because he wasn't terribly likely to be successful, even with a nano blade. Gone are the days of a nano blade 1v6ing, 2v6ing, however you want to think about it, the opposing team. Like, if you can't reach your Genji and you were positioned reasonably for your team and your Genji just went in too early, I don't care. You don't have to nano him. Nano your Winston instead, your Reinhardt instead, your Ashe that gets jumped by their Winston instead, whatever the case, because he's going for a blade that your team isn't going to be able to support him during. And not just you, your team isn't going to be able to support him during. So I don't really care about this.
But if you don't nano them, not only are they going to waste their blade, but they're probably just going to go feed it and die, especially if they try to slash dash and they expect you to nano them. So communication is important, and following through is very important with combos, no matter what.
I mean, again, like, yes, you guys should. Everyone sort of knows and everyone sort of understands, and people who are playing this game even remotely seriously generally understand that when you have multiple ults on the board, like maybe you could try to win the fight with Nanoblade, or maybe you could try to win the fight with Blizzard. Most people are going to understand that these have a pretty high priority for getting used and getting off the board and getting the next one charged again faster than Blizzard. Whereas something like Valk or something like Supercharger is going to be lower priority if you have a bunch of ults, because you'd like to use these ults, you'd like to get these off the board and charging again, so that when you use Supercharger or when you use Valk, it helps feed the charging of these ults again. But okay.
What you're doing. Now, the next way to use Nano Boost is actually to peel, and this is really effective when you have a target or an ally that is isolated and they're getting dove, and if you can give them more damage and damage.
Yeah, that's a good cover. So we've covered combos and we've covered, hey, someone's getting jumped and we're using it to peel. Like our Zen's getting jumped and we nano him, and now we Discord headshot, one shot something's great.
Reduction plus full health, like a McCree, for instance, getting
McCree's fine, Hanzo's fine, Ashe is fine, sure.
Dove by, I don't know, like a Monkey or a Genji. All of a sudden, they're not only going to live, but they're going to be able to turn the matchup, and sometimes you can trade that Nano Boost for a straight-up kill on that person that is trying to kill your teammate, which is definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, you can turn a dive into a feed. It can be great to the peel nano.
And it's typically going to be
now it's going to throw some people off, especially at lower levels, because some of those people are like, what? I've never been nanoed as Zen before, that sort of thing, and they're going to just like panic a little bit, and they'll probably just survive rather than turn it, but as you get higher, they'll do a better job of turning it. So it's still valid, even at low levels.
To win that team fight with that first pick. The next way you can use Nano Boost is aggressive. This is where you're basically just throwing it on like your main tank or anyone on your team when you are going in really hard. You're going
when you're in hard or when you're going in hard?
in for an aggressive team fight, you do not want to have to perfectly anticipate who to throw it on, and you want to start building up your next one. So often you throw it on the character that is going to get the most use out of it. That could be, a Smurf on your team. That could be someone that's been popping off, or the main tank, the Genji that's flanking. It doesn't really matter who you throw it on. It's just adding a
Convince
little
me
bit more
that you understand
pressure
this.
and a little bit more damage to your initial engage. I don't really think that this is the best way to use Nano, but it definitely is fine in a...
No, you don't understand what's going on. You've seen that pros use their Nano early in fights. You've seen that better players use their Nano early in fights, so you're not willing to say it's an invalid way to use Nano, but you don't actually understand what's going on, and that's clear from how you're talking about it here. What you're doing is you don't do it as you're going in. That is wrong. If you're like, hey, my Reinhardt is here, and the other Reinhardt is here, and my Reinhardt has forward momentum, but can't yet hit the opposing Reinhardt with his swing, that's too early of a Nano. Lots of people get this wrong. That's too early of a Nano. The opposing team is just going to go, yeah, we're going to kite you. We don't want to deal with that. And we'll move backwards slower than you move forwards, but your 8-second Nano is going to be down to like 2 seconds by the time you catch us. You're not going to get much value out of it. Congratulations, you rotated in more cleanly. Yes, now the fight is going to start. You're not really going to have gotten value out of Nano other than your rotation was easier. We didn't punish you as much on the way in rotating through as we usually would have. That's not good enough. You could use a Valk at that timing, perhaps. That would be fine. You could use a rally at that timing, maybe a window at that timing. But that's not what you're going to do. What you're doing with your Nano, and it's a perfectly valid Nano, is you're going, hey, my Reinhardt is right here, and he's within a step, or he's already swinging into the opposing Reinhardt. Or my Winston is already in the air leaping in, and he's going to land on this target, and this target can't rotate out quickly enough. And that Zen, that Hanzo, that McCree that he was jumping on is suddenly going to have a very bad time. Or, again, if we go back to the Rhine swinging into Rhine example here, this Rhine is now going to be under immense pressure, and you're going to be able to do a lot. This isn't just some little bit of boost, etc. This is like your Rhine takes half as much damage, does 50% more damage, and you get to go, while this is happening, because he's winning this so easily, you get to go, I don't need to use my nade on him. I can use my nade somewhere else. This guy's going to hard shield. That gives us all the time in the world to take offensive shots around him at, his backline, support him, or to more easily overwhelm him. Like, this should not be underestimated. This is not a bad use of Nano at all. And we can do it. I used main tanks as examples. You can do it with other people. If you go, hey, my tracer's in, like my Rhine has gone in and is swinging at their Rhine, and my tracer is just done their double blink in and started their clip, and bam, I nano them as they're fighting the Ana, the Zen, whatever. Sure, that can work too. But this is him misunderstanding and him thinking that these nanos that he sees at the beginning of fights, he sees them perform poorly sometimes in air too early, but he also sees that pros sort of use it like this, so he's not willing to call it out as bad. What's going on is he's not understanding the timing differential of as the fight is starting or just after the fight is started versus early, which is bad. You don't use it as your team is like walking in. You might use it as a Winston is leaping in because he's going to get in at that point. You might use it as your Genji is pulling out his blade from above the enemies because he's going to fall in. As the Diva's boostering in, perhaps, that sort of thing. As a Hammond is up here about to pile drive, sure, that sort of thing is fine. As an Ashe has taken a deep angle over here against an enemy team that's here, sure, you could nano this Ashe. That's perfectly fine. But this fight has started. This is real, whether you actually see the damage exchanging or not.
Pinch. And then the last way is when you're overwhelmed. And this one is really hard to master, but it's really important. The last way is when you're overwhelmed. And
isn't that just going to be a peel nano again?
this one is really hard to master, but it's really important to know when and where to do it. Sometimes people really want to have that perfect nano boost, but there are many situations where you're fighting a really close team fight and your other support dies. And now you're an Ana that is really trying to keep your entire team alive.
You're always trying to do that. You're not really counting on your Brig. I mean, not always, but you're not really counting on your Brig to keep your team alive. Like, yes, Serpax absolutely help, or Inspire absolutely helps. I don't want to underplay those. Yes, Lucio does provide some healing to your team, and it matters, and we shouldn't underestimate it. But you're expected to do the lion's share of the healing. If your other support goes down, is Ana a huge amount of healing is a big part of what you're bringing. I'm not saying that you're a heal bot and that that's what you should do, but a huge amount of healing is what you are supposed to bring. And the reason you run a hero like Brig is so that you can heal even harder, so that you can be uninterrupted as you're using your abilities, contributing value. So like, oh no, we lost our Brig, we don't have enough healing. No, 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 no. You lose your Ana and you only have Lucio or Brig left, and suddenly healing becomes a real issue, and that becomes the other team can beat you in a war of attrition pretty easily. You lose your other support, you've still got plenty of healing as Ana. Your utility becomes an issue. Your Ana becomes vulnerable because flankers can go after her. Your team becomes vulnerable because they can't rotate as cleanly without their Lucio. They can't repel dives the same way without their Brig. Like, they don't have their res, whatever. Like, that's not really what's going on there. You have the healing as Ana.
And it's very difficult. It's overwhelming. Everyone's dropping to low, and often the best thing that you could do is like nano your Rhine and keep him up, heal him up, and then pump him once, and then you can focus on the other targets. Nano can be a great way to kind of keep that level, satisfactory to the point where no one is falling through, because a lot of times when you are like removing your attention from a target in a really hyperactive team fight, they're gonna die right away, and it's far better to use that nano to keep your team up.
Sure, but if your Reinhardt is in a place where he's going to get eliminated right away if you stop healing him and you nano him, he's also in a situation where we're actually back in the previous category that this guy just doesn't understand of you're nanoing your Reinhardt that is in the fight to let him go wild in the fight. And he might not be able to go wild because he might just be taking too much damage, but you're letting him go get a ton of value out of that nano, get a ton of damage reduction value because the fight is real, and get a ton of damage value because he's potentially cleaving multiple targets. This is really just like a later version of the previous nano, but the fight hasn't gone so bad yet that you're down people. Like, this is fine if you don't get your nano until later in the fight, so you don't get to hit it until now, or the plan was to use other ults, so you went and used the other ults as your plan, but you didn't win off of them because the opponents used ults too, or they just didn't get value, whatever, and then you go to use it while it's still a 6v6 or a 5v5. Sure, that's perfectly valid, but really this is just like a later version of the previous thing. I don't really consider this its own category. Yeah, I wouldn't really consider this its own category. This is either I'm using my nano to peel because someone's in trouble, or I'm using this nano sort of the same way that we talked about with the previous one that this guy didn't really understand properly. I don't really consider this its own thing.
Up and alive.
I don't want to create more categories just for the sake of more categories. We'd prefer to keep things simple if we can.
Then try to make this crazy play with it, especially if you don't have a dead set combo that is going to be able to overcome that numbers advantage. So using it overwhelmed, sometimes that's the best thing you could do. Nano a target, pump them once, and then go focus on healing the rest of your team.
Nano them, peel them another 70 HP, move on. Only applies to tanks, but okay.
But if you want to know more, we have in-depth advanced VOD
No way.
reviews on the Gameleap website that show you step-by-step.
No way. Really? Wow. Okay. My thoughts here are should have read the wiki. Like, my thoughts on this are what we got is we went through the abilities, and we could have gotten most of that from the wiki. We got a little bit more detail on how to use them. I do not at all feel like I was taught how to carry, like any of the carry aspects were went into. He talked a couple times about fragging, about hitting your sleeps, about fragging, hitting your sleeps, and positioning, but we didn't actually hear anything about positioning. What does Ana positioning look like? I feel like that's really, really important and a thing that we left out. This is definitely not a 2021 how to carry guide. You're not carrying by knowing what all of your abilities do in Overwatch. In Overwatch, everyone, probably like above silver, unless they just place gold and are quickly falling, knows what everyone's abilities do in 2021. Like, just knowing what the abilities do isn't enough. We didn't really get enough flushing out of how to do them. I disagree a little bit with I disagree with some of the nano stuff there. I think we've overemphasized communication, especially for a carry guide. We talked about Biotic Rifle, but we really didn't talk about how to set up offensive shots, when to use them. Like, this is really shallow. And I can actually live with some degree of wiki reading, but I look at something like this and Cager is just better for this sort of thing. Like, Cager does a fair amount of, like, hey, he'll tell you what the abilities do in terms of their wiki, etc. But he'll also go get, like, he'll do the wiki stuff, but he'll also go get you what the techs are. Like, he'll go and find, okay, this is the Simtech to do a TP bomb where you send turrets through your TP, that sort of thing. Like, he'll actually go into the text and he'll illustrate the text, etc. And even that isn't like the absolute best thing in the world. It's not a how to carry with it guide, but it's certainly more useful than what you're getting here in terms of this is like you do more than that. Like, you have the advanced tips, you also have some of the like appearances from other people that he's sourced. I'm not doing this to be like, oh, I did this video to plug Cager or anything, but I just look at this and that's sort of like they're sort of similar, and that this Cager and Gameleap here, at least in this guide, both go pretty heavily into this is what the abilities do. But you go so much better and you get so much more with the other one that I'm actually disappointed in this. And this is an over 100,000 subscriber channel, I want to say. Let's take a look here. Yeah, that's an over 100,000 subscriber channel. And I get it. It's because of the thumbnails, and they made their thumbnails pretty, and they're using the word carry a lot, and that's what, for a time, everyone in Overwatch was looking for. Um, but I'm really not impressed. Like, my review of this really is should have read the wiki instead. Like, you'd have been better off spending 5 minutes on the wiki reading what the abilities do than having spent 12 minutes watching this. It really didn't have that much value to it. Maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe I was just expecting more. The guy who started it, after all, called himself Coach something. So okay, maybe I was just expecting too much there. But whatever. Okay, we have a super chat coming in from Adam in Charge saying, "Here, poor boy, have $1 now, dance monkey." Um, I mean, can can you call me poor after having watched this? Like, the intellectual poverty that we're looking at here in terms of how to actually go over the things that help you carry as Anna. By the way, guys, like, what I would have wanted to include here would have been something like, I would have liked to cover Anna positioning a bit more, how you cover back here, how you slide up to your angles. But if I was to be like, these are the most important things to carry with Anna, the answer probably would have been, and I'm not doing a full video on this, this is off the top of my head, though I guess you could say it's similar to my mini guides in some way, though I'm not emphasizing carrying, would be understand that your purple nades are huge for taking over fights, so you position safely, you adjust forward with your positioning on an angle, not just forward but on an angle, to get big purples while your team is engaged, and you get nano timings right. That would be like, and these are going to be the two biggest things to make the difference, etc. Like, we didn't really cover nano timings at all here. We covered that purples are good, but we didn't talk about how or when to get them. Um, and those would have been things I'd emphasize. Could we have done a more complete? Could we do a more complete Ana guide where we talk about general positioning, where we talk about the rotation between your sleep and your nade, where we talk about how to get your offensive shots in there, how you can do it early in the fight, how sometimes it's the right answer, even when your Reinhardt's at half health, to take your crosshair off him to finish off the Pharah that your McCree is shooting at. Could we have talked about those things? Absolutely, we could. But like, if we were really trying to do something this short, this shallow, and we were trying to make it about carrying, it probably would have been in that territory, and it would have been better than this. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and call this review of this here, but we're going to go ahead and catch up on chat now. If you guys are enjoying the content, please do drop a like, consider subscribing if you haven't already subscribed. If you have if you have something else that you'd like me to cover, you're like, hey, you should do a review on this, preferably something relatively recent, you guys can join my Discord in the description below. Maybe we'll create a channel. If not, for now, just throw it up in member chit chat. Things that you'd be like, hey, Temporal, I'd like you to take a review of this, look at this, etc. I'm probably not going to hit the same creator like a bunch of times in a row. We've done Gameleap now. We've done Your Overwatch. We did A10. A10 was much better than this. I'd probably say this was less wrong than Your Overwatch. If I was doing my tier list, this was probably less wrong than Your Overwatch, but I still like just read the wiki instead. Anyway, join the Discord in the description below, all that good stuff, and feel free to leave a comment on your thoughts. We have another super chat coming in from Adam in Charge for 199 saying, "Poor." Okay. Okay. There we go. So let's catch up on chat now. I am going back to the beginning, so I'm not quite going to be in real time here, but you guys can continue to add stuff. So we see a Gameleap guide, and then Val says, Master, I won every Dorado since you posted the map guide. That high ground is OP. The high ground is incredibly OP, and I'm glad that the map guides are helping you. I think there's something that the community has desperately needed an in-depth level of, and no one really had a complete list. There was someone who did one. Maybe I'll share it later, but I don't want to. Yeah, we'll get to it. There hasn't been a complete map guide set out there that's good. Is the issue? The closest thing we had to one is like 4 or 5 years old, and it wasn't complete. So, and it's a creator who's not doing content anymore. So, like, we're gonna get that out there. I think those really help people in Overwatch. I'm glad they're helping you, Val. Gameleap website is so bad, is it? Enemies take longer to die if they're getting healed. Right, Mercedes? Right? Nordstorm says, I hate Gameleap so much. Their videos are so clickbaity. Yeah. And then no way. That's the follow-up to taking longer to die. You can out damage healing. Winston, hold my beer. He tries. He tries so hard, but his job isn't to out damage healing. We know that his job is to sort of keep people pressured, keep people low, sort of keep people where they are, while someone, for as long as he can, without spending too much of his health, while giving someone else the opportunity to come in and finish them off. Stars Filth Coaching says, I imagine this is mostly going to be niche techs rather than much of anything substantial for a player. I don't even really think it was that. Like, niche techs would be more cager territory where, hey, we're going to get into some of the techs on these heroes. This was like, here's an ability, and one thing, like, here's the ability, here's reading the wiki, and then, like, one or two things you should know about it. Like, they weren't even that niche, and they weren't fleshed out to the degree that I'd have liked. Kind of off-topic question. Where should you position play against Dive as Zen? Should you play much closer to your team? Oh, we have a super chat coming in from Sheldon for $5 saying, here's a gentle nudge for a JRPG stream. I did one last night, and I've actually got a session coming up in 20 minutes here, so I'm not going to be doing one right now, but I may do one again this evening. I have to finish registering for affiliate and such because we did hit our requirements for that last night with a JRPG stream where we're playing through some Tales of Arise over on Twitch, which is Temporal TV over on Twitch. Feel free to hop over there, drop a follow. You can see some JRPG playthroughs. You can see us do some Overwatch over there occasionally. Good stuff. But thank you for the $5 super chat there, Sheldon. Here's a gentle nudge for a JRPG stream. Cool, another session. That one probably won't be streamed. It'll probably be recorded and then later uploaded. But yes, Nordstrom says yes, do more map guides. Let me scroll back up because I jumped for the super chat. Is this Frito? This is not Frito. This is Gameleap guides. No, this is not Frito. Frito is light years above Gameleap. I mean, maybe generally, I don't know enough about Gameleap. Frito is light years ahead of Gameleap in terms of his subscriber count. I think your Overwatch is like 800,000 subscribers, something like that, whereas this is 100,000. This was reading the wiki, but it was less wrong, I'd say, than much of that Orisa guide was. The Free to God Supercharger is very right. I liked his Supercharger section. Yeah. We'd have to review more of each, which we're not going to do immediately. We probably will end up reviewing more of each of these channels, but I'd like to, bring other stuff to the forefront to look at. We're not just going to go, oh, let's review 4 your Overwatch or Gameleaps or whatever in a row. You signed up for a ProGrides free trial once, didn't learn anything. I'm sorry to hear that, Val, but I'm glad that you found a better place to learn things here over in our Discord. Hello once again, everybody. Hey, Sheldon. How about if you sleep a tracer, wait 3 seconds, melee her to make her recall, then shoot need melee after recall? Would you disagree with the best way to get better is to try to hard carry? I would probably disagree with that because trying to hard carry is going to actively be trying to go do everything you possibly can to win every single game, and I actually really like more focused improvement than that. To be honest, I like a little bit more focus on what you're working on. Temporal sounds so over this fluff, little bit. Oh, Blah's trolling us by saying I'm learning how to play Ana. This is helpful. You shoot to heal and sleep to sleep. Never would have known that without the video. This is about what I expected. And you combo Nano with Blade, of course. This is clearly the one thing I've been doing wrong as Ana. I can hit GM now. Thank you, Blah. Thank you. With Nano, I guarantee they just say combo ults or something. That Stars filth. They went deeper than that. They then got one part very wrong, in my opinion, but they did go deeper than that. This is about what you expected. When you Nano Blade, you can get a lot of limbs. It's true. It's true. Was your luck Genji boost himself off the map? I'm sorry, Game Buster. What about when to stack versus when to stagger ults? Like Nano Blade versus Winston Jump Primal Nano? Yeah, that's would be a good thing to cover. That would be a good thing to cover. I think you nano Winston often enough that it's worth talking about that interaction, or at least specific. You don't fully control it, but at least specifically saying don't nano him when he's primaled unless he goes very low health. And preferably, if he does already have primal, let him use primal first and then transition into nano, because you'd like the nano to start to feed his ult charge. This guide doesn't say too much for how long it is. Yeah, it's 12 minutes, so it's short. It's about the length of maybe even a tiny bit shorter than one of my mini guides, and it tried to go over all the abilities. There's a reason that in my mini guides I generally pick about 2 things to cover and cover them well, because we actually go beyond the level of here is the wiki. I kind of disagree. Not planning calling the nano since ult planning is so important. Those are sort of different things. Ult planning is helpful to go be like, hey, we have a plan for how we're going to win this fight. That can absolutely happen where you go, hey, we're going to talk this through, especially in organized play. It can happen on ladder 2, and that's fine. You can also sort of just communicate with, again, pressing Z. Hey, my ult is ready, my ult is ready. Ana and Genji have signaled to each other that it's going to happen. So if we're calling that communication and communicating with your Genji, sure, fine. I just don't want to overemphasize this voice chat thing to someone that is trying to hard carry, since that's who this is supposed to be for. Also, I can make a case for not communicating and just pressing tab or Z. Why tilt yourself with toxic teammates? Right. Why listen to a bunch of golds? Listen to Temporal? Sure. Val says carry guide sounds more like advanced guide rather than new player how to play Ana guide. This isn't even, I mean, it's a little bit of how to play her, but it's basically the wiki. Yeah. Gameleap is the used car salesman of Overwatch educational content. Okay. Okay. They said more than combo. Fair play. They did in the end, Starsfeld. Not the worst guide ever, but hard carry. Nope. Yeah. Some Ana tips. You as Moira getting nanoed. Where the Nade aim practice workshop codes? It's a good question. It's a good question. Maybe I should create a channel for workshop codes that you guys can drop codes you find helpful in. Maybe I should do that in the Discord. So you want to throw it on the character that's going to get the most use out of it? Wow, so insightful. I thought I should give it to Mercy, who's heal botting my Roadhog. I mean, Mercy might get some use out of it. She might be inspired to pull out that. Okay, no, not really. Not unless she's Falcon. And even then. Gameleap hasn't made a Mercy video in 3 years. Wonder why. Did you just scare everyone out of making Mercy videos, Val? Is that what you did? Like, you're telling us that your Overwatch hasn't done it, Gameleap hasn't done it. Did you just go around and scare them all? This is basically a reaction video that makes me feel smart. Hey, if as long as you feel smart, Congex, we're good. Oh, says I haven't seen your name a ton before. Glad I found Temporal's channel after a while starting Overwatch, realizing the IQ difference from watching Temporal rather than watching Gameleap has helped you immensely. Actually got plat because of Temporal. Happy to hear it, says I mean, you did the work. You actually had to climb. I might have pointed you in the right direction. I might have given you some feedback that was helpful, that changed how you thought about it. But ultimately, you were the one who had to do the work, play the games, work it into your system, make the things your habits. Glad we could help them. Stars Filth is struggling with that overwhelmed about as much as I did. Like, overwhelmed is a concept for using Nano. Again, not really its own category. That's more it's a peel Nano or it's a after we've initiated Nano. As we've initiated. Like, we've actually, our front lines have met. I see many new names. Was this video posted on Reddit? No, we have lots of people who, like these sorts of videos. People like this video, and I can generally tell what sort of video. Less people show up for the reviews than they do for other things. And there's lots of people who are watchers who are subscribed who don't show up for every review who are more likely to show up for this kind of thing, and that's totally fine. Just panic Nano. The Ryan will be expecting some heals after Nano. I mean, he does get 300 health from it. And damage reduction. If I was going to panic Nano, I'd rather hit a low HP target that is about to get eliminated. Potentially, sure. Generally, yes, because if they're low health, there should be someone on them. It can be a little different if they're low health because they're getting poked out. That's a little less useful. But yeah, if there's someone in their face, yes. Maybe he expects that your other support is Moira. maybe. But temporal, more categories mean more video length, which means more ad revenue. More categories means more video length, which means more ad revenue. Sorry, Nardstorm, I'm not quite sure what that was in reference to. It works. You clicked on the winning thing. Haven't lost a game yet. Okay. Not just hard carry temp. Hard carry all caps. I'm ready to learn how to hard carry on Ana, guys. I don't feel like I've been taught how to do that from this video, but I'm ready to learn. Stars Filth is buying the $150 lifetime Gameleap package as we speak. I see. Well, good luck with that, Stars Filth. Maybe you're going to steal all their secrets and use it for your own coaching. Maybe you're going to do that and it'll make your coaching better. I feel bad for your students if that's what's going to happen, because I don't think it's going to make your coaching better based on what we saw here. But we only saw one thing here. Maybe other stuff on this channel is better. I haven't really paid any attention to them, but it doesn't sound like it is based on what you guys are telling me. You hard carry as Ana now? Imagine scamming Overwatch players in 2021. I mean, that's Blizzard's job, right? Temporal's reaction at the end of this video when he just advertised it on website. Yeah. Does it? The 200 Gameleap package comes with 100 worth of in-game boosters, so you'll get boosted GM for free. Does it? That's news to me. Wow, you've said nothing of value when you're poor. Okay, Adam. Thumbnails, all caps, shouty voice. Sure. Have a nano tip to just stop throwing if you're not feeding. Like, get off the point in overtime. Okay. People sub once, then forget or are too lazy to unsub. Could be. When you started Overwatch, you noticed their thumbnails are just bait ones. Yeah, I noticed that. I did look a tiny bit over it, and I saw that they'd gone with some that was like, oh look, they've put a lot of Overwatch women in scantily clad clothing, etc., which I can only assume they got Rule 34 stuff, etc. Though there's another content creator who does that, who spends times on Overwatch Uni. So okay. You could have watched the wiki, read the wiki instead, and used the remaining 4 minutes to watch Wrecking Ball by Miley Cyrus. I suppose you could do that. Intellectually impotent. There you go. Adam is throwing some more tomatoes. This guide sucks. You made it, and I'm upset now. I mean, this guide does suck. I didn't make it. I made a review for this guide. Blah says, Temporal, if I submit Ana gameplay, will you make an Ana guide out of it? I already did an Ana mini guide. I should probably do more mini guides, but as you can see, we've been branching and doing other content types, and that's been working pretty well for us. We'll do more mini guides at some point, though. Have a great day, Temporal. Thank you, Sheldon. Thank you. He'll make a what to avoid guide. Maybe. Maybe. Is there another Ana guide around? Maybe some sort of mini guide made by a well-respected content creator? And does the other content creator offer coaching? I think there is. I think there's a mini guide out there for Ana published by some guy who goes by Temporal. I think that exists. I think, in fact, if you're watching this video, you can click into the channel, go to playlist, you'll see a mini guide playlist, and it'll be right there in it. I think that's true. It's pouring rain here, actually. Oh, okay. We could use some rain, but I'm in California where, we have fires and we have a drought and all that stuff. Adam says Temporal sucks. Legit RC is glorious. Okay. Okay. Anything Ana equals ML7. They did use ML7 here. I noticed that they went with this thing here for the Gameleaps thing, but one of the things that they took clip for, B-roll for, was ML7 gameplay. Did the guide mention quick scoping at all? No. Please do more map guides. We're definitely going to. What kind of music do I like? It differs. Whatever sounds good at the time. I don't have a perfect answer for you there, Nardstorm. Huge fan of the Tales series. Might check it out. That would be in reference to the stream that is happening that we're doing over on Temporal TV on Twitch. Cool, cool. Frito also has an Ana guide. Okay. Wouldn't pay full price for most Tales games because they are often on sale. Well, this one just came out not Thursday that happened a few days ago, but I think last Thursday. So probably not going to be on sale yet. Trying to hard carry is like headbanging to the Doom soundtrack while playing. Fun, but not effective. Okay. You see Nano Primal too often? It's not great. You would just report Genji for spamming when he did that? What, goes in with his blade when your team isn't close enough to support? Or just hits Z to tell you that he wants to use Nano Blade this fight? You want workshop codes too? Does Temporal have any he recommends? Maybe a couple, not a ton. That's something that we could source as a community, but that would be us sourcing it as a community. That wouldn't be me just going, okay, these are the best ones. People like messy content creator drama. Well, maybe we've started some here. Probably not. Don't go start a fight with them guys over at Gameleap. Don't actually do that. Temporal is merely a guide leading those to treasure he cannot possess, having an SR above bottom 500. Thank you, Nardstorm. Thank you. That's actually a good point, Starsfield. I spent 150 on Gameleap would actually make for a good video, I think. It might. So yeah, I spent 150 on Gameleap so you don't have to. You could jump on that one, Starsfield. That would be a good video. Challenge run. Maybe I'll do it if you don't. Probably not today, though. Challenge run, play Overwatch according to Gameleap only, then attempt to climb to GM. Ugh. Used to think your Overwatch was from Blizzard. Ouch. Ouch. Okay, the super chat interrupted you mid-sentence, answering my question. Here it is again. Where should you position play against Dive as Zen? Should you play close to your team? Any playstyle change? So it depends. You can play a little closer to your team to let you peel for you. Like, that's a thing, and it's not the worst thing in the world if you go, hey, I'll play a little closer to my team so that my team can more easily peel for me. But you can also go, Dive has to appropriately stage. Usually the better answer is you've got someone controlling over here, you've got someone controlling over here, and you're back here as Zen, and now it's hard for the opposing divers to get through. So there's someone here. There's distance if they try to go this way. If they try to go this way, they can get collapsed upon by, hey, they're getting pummeled by you, by your diver, by your diver. Yes, I'm sort of assuming dive v dive here, so that would be one thing. If you're playing it a little more brawly, yeah, you're probably going to work your way in. But even if that's the case, like, okay, let's say you're playing a brawl comp, you've got your McCree controlling an off angle, you've got your Rhine controlling here, and you go, okay, you could play tight end on your Zen. That's not wrong. You could also play a little bit further back, and it's going to be hard to flank you because your McCree is controlling the off angle. So it depends. If your team is adequately taking angles and controlling lanes, you can still play reasonably far back. If they're not, you're probably going to play a little tighter in where it's going to be a little easier. Like if your diva is stacked, that sucks, but your diva, if she is stacked, is going to peel for you if you're here better than she's going to peel for you if she's here with your Rhine and you're, I don't know, over here, for example. So you can get a little bit closer to your team in those situations. It depends on if the lanes are being controlled, is the real answer. It depends on if you can pelt people before they get close. It depends on what your comp is a bit. Temporal, you should do a how to deal with Bastion guide, would do quite well. I could. When did you review your Overwatch? I want to watch that. We reviewed their Orisa guide. So if you search either Orisa or your Overwatch in my channel, you should find it pretty easily. I don't think I have it in a playlist. We might turn this into a playlist, reviewing other people's guides and such. ML7's more educational than any of these educational channels? Could be, could be. We haven't reviewed anything from ML7 on the channel yet. So I'm not going to agree or disagree because I don't want to take away the suspense. Just joined, has the guide so far. The guide so far is should have read the wiki instead. And again, I'm not opposed to including the wiki information. The wiki information can be a good, fine starting point. Cager uses it as a starting point, but then goes deeper with it, for example. This was like, here's the wiki, and then like, here's one thing about the ability and how to use it beyond the wiki, which was like, what? What? Maybe two things. Okay, can you give us a little bit more than that? And can you not just make it about here's the abilities, the 4 abilities for Ana plus? Okay, well that's not our favorite. Don't start a fight with them. Yeah, I mean it's better if we don't. Better if we don't. Cave 5 with a K is a good aim workshop code. Sure, sure. You don't want to start a fight with all those hard carries. Okay. Okay, that's going to do it. If you guys are enjoying the content, once again, please do feel free to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Do drop a like. Feel free to throw something down in the comments. And if you have more stuff that you're like, no, this would be good to go review, you can drop that in the Discord, which you can join through the description down below. Hope you guys have enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.